Hello students, today I will be doing a revision of the ninth chapter of the new NCERT Class 6 Science, which is Methods of Separation. This is the chemistry important chapter. Now today I will be doing revision of most important points. Okay, now previously you will find another video which is the full chapter explanation in Hindi. Okay, now you can also see this video. Now that video entirely follows the NCERT textbook, but today's video will be a little bit advanced. So let's start. Now, so the chapter's name is, as you see, methods of separation in everyday life. So what are the methods of separation? Now the first thing to know is, why do we need to separate and what do we need to separate? Basically, we need to separate the various components of a mixture. That's it, nothing else. Now what's the need? Why do we need to separate the components? You see, the separation of mixtures into its components is necessary to remove undesirable and harmful substances and to get desirable substances in their pure form. Say for example, the smartphone you are handling right now. Where do you think the elements for this you are getting? Everything that you are getting is actually we get in the form of mixture from our mother earth, and then using various techniques we separate various elements, and the important ones we use them for ourselves. Say for example, use them to make smartphone, laptop, anything. Okay, so separation is very important. Next, so as I was saying, to separate the components of a mixture, first the most important thing is we have to find out some of the properties of the components of the mixture. Okay, now usually the components will have significant difference in some physical property like solubility, whether it is soluble or not, boiling point, size, density, whether you can see it with your bare eyes or not, visibility, okay, and so on. Now the first thing that has been covered in the NCERT textbook is handpicking, which is basically a slow process in which the undesired particles in rice, wheat, dals, etc. that are visible are picked up by hand and separated. See the person, okay, he is picking up small stones, pebbles from the rice. Okay, now important thing, this hand picking method is done on the basis of differences in size, color and shape of the particles. Now this is a convenient method of separation if the particles to be separated are number one, visible, number two, present in small quantities, and third point, it can be easily picked up by hand. Okay, so that's the first method. Next we have got the method of threshing or thrashing, and this is the process of loosening the edible part of the grain or any other crop from the straw. See, the straw has got both the grain as well as, so this is the straw, you see, straw over here, and here you have got the grains, edible part. So you beat it around here, and as a result the grains get separated from the straw. Okay, so as I told you, this threshing is done by beating the stalks to separate the grains. Okay, see, the women are doing the same thing. Now remember that threshing does not remove the bran from the grain. For this we have to use another separation method. So this is our second separation method. Hand picking was the first method. Okay, now the third method is winnowing. You see, winnowing is the process of separation of lighter particles from the heavier particles using the wind to carry away the lighter particles. Now you see the thing over here. So this is a bamboo tray soup which contains both husk as well as grains. So the mixture of husk and grain you can find over here. Now using the gravity, they are both falling, but since the grains have got more dense, they are more dense. Okay, so you see also as a result they are heavier, they are falling over here, whereas the husk, they are blowing away by air and they are being separated. See, so this is where your grain is and this is where your husk is. So using this method of just the difference in the density of the components and using the wind, that is basically winnowing, we have separated the components. Now in modern days we also use this machine, electrical machine, thresher, which does this thing automatically. Okay, fine. Now, so this was our third technique, winnowing, right? Let me write it down. Okay, so now let us move to the fourth technique, which is sieving. Okay, now sieving is the process of separating the undesirable components in solid mixtures. See, for example, here the sand and small pebbles, they are mixed together. Now as a result of using the sieve, okay, very small net like structure, sieve, the pebbles, they are all collected over the net or the sieve, and the sand, it just passes down. So we are able to separate the mixture of sand and pebbles. See, here also sieving of flour with some unwanted stuff. The unwanted stuff will put on the sieve over here, see, and the flour will just fall down and we will be able to separate the both of them. Remember, if you look into your kitchen, you may ask your mother, you will see that sieves of various sizes are available. That means various hole sizes. You can see sieves with big holes. Again, you can see sieves with very small tiny holes. Okay. Now the size of the hole depends upon the size of the particle which is to be separated. Suppose we want to separate size of particle which is, say, of this order, say for example this much big, then we can use this sieve. We don't need to use this, right? But if we want to separate a size of unwanted particle whose size is this, then we have to use this one, because if we use this size of unwanted particle over here, it will pass through along with your desirable particles as well. So this is the way. Now, so this was technique number 4. Let's move on to find more about the difference between sieving and winnowing. You see, in sieving, the size of the undesirable particles is the main factor used for separating them from the mixture, whereas in winnowing, the density or basically the weight of the particles in the mixture is used for separating them from the mixture. See, you understand the factor? Okay, so in one place we are using the density or weight as the factor, and in another case we are using the size of the particle, undesirable particle of course, as the main factor. Okay, so now let's move forward to evaporation. Now evaporation is the process in which a liquid changes into its vapor state. Now this method is used to separate a solid dissolved in a liquid with a low boiling point. This is important. The boiling point should be low. You see, evaporation takes place at all times, but it is quicker at high temperatures. Say for example, you see, dry clothes, clothes become dry more quickly in summer compared to in winter. See the effect of temperature. Okay, now here you can see a person who is trying to obtain salt from seawater using this cage like structure. He is putting salt water over here. Now as a result of evaporation by sunlight, the water goes away in air and the salt you can find over here, and then the person collects the salt over here. So this is how we obtain salt from seawater. This is technique separation number 5, evaporation. Okay, now let us talk about the 6th technique, which is sedimentation and decantation. Now what are they? Well, sedimentation is the settling down of suspended, insoluble, heavy solid particles in a solid liquid mixture. This settling down is due to the effect of gravity. Okay, now what is decantation? Decantation is the process of pouring out the clear liquid after sedimentation without disturbing the sediment. Okay, see for example here we are separating the tea leaves from the tea using decantation. Okay, we can sometimes wash rice and dal. Again, there we use decantation. See here, this is liquid along, and after some time you see a sediment is formed because the heavier particles, they have settled down at the bottom, and then we just pour out the clear liquid at the top, which are the lighter ones. Now, in sedimentation and decantation, the difference in the densities of the components in the mixture is used. Okay, you see we have separated here the lighter or the less dense mixture component, and the denser one is forming the sediment at the bottom. Now, as I was telling you, before cooking, rices and pulses are washed with water. The dirty water is separated by decantation. Okay, now on to the seventh method, which is filtration. Now, the process of separating insoluble solid particles from a solid liquid mixture by allowing it to pass through a filter is called filtration. Sometimes sedimentation, and sometimes the sedimentation and decantation doesn't entirely separate the components of a mixture. Then we can use this filtration process. Okay, now mixtures like chalk and water, clay and water, brew and tea leaves, sawdust and water, they can be separated by this method. For this method of filtration, we have to use a filter. What is a filter? A filter is basically a porous material. Small pores are there in this filter paper, very small pores, very small pores, and then this allows the liquid to flow through, and the unwanted, undesirable particles get stuck over the filter paper. Now, you see a piece of cotton, a layer of sand, a piece of filter paper, or a piece of cloth can be used as a filter. The insoluble solids of various sizes remain on the filter as residue. See, the unwanted particles which remain above are known as residue. And the liquid, called the filtrate, passes through the filter and is collected separately. See, for example, over here, the separation of a mixture of sand and water by filtration. Above the filter paper, all the sand is being deposited and you get the water over here. Okay, and this is how you make the filter paper. Take this, make a first fold, then make a second fold, and then make a structure like a cone, and then use over here, right? Okay, now on to method number 8, which is centrifugation. This is the method of separating the components from a homogeneous solid liquid mixture by rotating them at high speed in a centrifuge. And as a result of this high speed rotation, see, for example, the woman is churning. As a result of the high speed of the rotation, the heavier particles are settled and they settle down at the bottom. As a result, we can separate the heavier as from the lighter particles. Okay, as a result of the rotation of this entire stuff using a churner or a makthi. Now, say for example, cream is separated from milk by this method. See, this is the churner over here. Of course, at home we use mixtures or traditional churners to separate cream from milk. This process is used even now in dairies. The next, or the ninth method, is the method of magnetic separation. It is a process of separating components of mixtures by using a magnet to attract the magnetic substances. You see, this process basically separates non-magnetic substances from those which are magnetic. Say for example, this simple illustration, see over here, this is a mixture of sand and iron fillings. Of course, sand is non-magnetic, whereas iron fillings are magnetic, right? Now if you put a magnet near it, all the iron fillings will get attached to the magnet, and as a result they will be removed from the sand. So you see, you can separate this iron fillings from sand using the magnet, or this is known as the magnetic separation. See for example, here junkyard where iron scrap is there, and people are using a crane and a large magnet, and the magnet attracts all the scrap iron which can be later put in a different place and can be recycled. Okay, see another example, third example. So we have got a powdered ore of, right? Now this powdered ore has magnetic as well as non-magnetic components, and here in this roller, this is a magnetic roller, whereas this one is non-magnetic. Now out of the the two components of the powder ore, the one which is magnetic, it will be attached more to this magnetic roller, and as a result it will be falling over in this collector, whereas the non-magnetic ore component will be falling over like this. So you see, we are able to separate the two components, non-magnetic as well as magnetic component of this powdered ore, using this magnetic separation. Next, we have got this method of distillation. Now this is a process by which two or more liquids with different boiling points are separated by the process of vaporization and condensation. Now this is the 10th method. This is an extra method which is not covered in the NCERT. I am giving it to you, discussing, because this is also important. And this is the last method, of course. Now distillation can be used for separating miscible as well as immiscible mixtures of liquid. The only condition is that the liquid components must have a clear difference in the boiling point. Say for example, alcohol boils at 78 degrees centigrade and water boils at 100 degrees centigrade. So when a mixture of alcohol and water is heated, alcohol boils off first, and as a result the water is left behind. See the technique of distillation. Now let's see a very important application of this distillation, that is purifying water. Now pure water is called distilled water, as it is obtained by distilling tap water. Now the apparatus you can see over here. Now a small crystal of potassium permanganate is added to the water to make it colored. Okay, now the water turns purple in the color. The conical flask here, which contains tap water, basically is slowly heated. As the boiling point of water is reached, the water starts vaporizing. Okay, and using this pipe, glass pipe, it gets accumulated over here, right? Why? You see the temperature of water is very high, but as it passes from this pipe, here the temperature is much lower. Here the temperature is higher, here the temperature is lower. So it undergoes condensation. So water converts to vapor. Here it again converts back to water, and the water is collected over here, right? As the boiling point of water is reached, the water starts vaporizing. The vapors rise in the conical flask, enter the bent glass tube. As they reach the other end of the tube, the temperature falls and the water vapor condenses to form distilled water. And so we are able to separate distilled water, clear water, from the tap water. The water thus collected will not be colored, as it is pure water, and this is the distilled water. Okay, this one. Fine. Now before I end, let me very briefly talk about some common mixtures and methods of separation. So if you have a mixture of salt, sand and iron fillings, then we can separate them using a magnet. Okay, see, using a magnet can separate iron fillings. To the remaining mixture, add water and stir well to form salt solution. Sand can be separated by filtration, and then salt can be separated from water by evaporation. So these are the 4 steps, A, B, C, D. Next, what about sand in water? Of course, we have to use sedimentation and then filtration. Next, what if we have got a mixture of sand, sawdust, common salt? Now first, separate the sawdust by winnowing. Next, add water to the mixture and stir well. The sand settles down and the salt dissolves in the water. Okay, the salt is separated by filtration, and finally the salt is separated by evaporation of the solution. See, this is very important even for Olympiad exams, students. And now, before I finish, alcohol and water, we already talked about distillation. Oil and water, separating funnel, two liquids have different densities. We have talked about in the more elaborate lecture. Next, mud and water, again we have used filtration. Tea leaves and brew, we have used filtration. Cream from milk, centrifugation technique. Husk from wheat, winnowing, and then stones from cereals, hand picking.